Hello everyone. Today I'm continuing on with my 1972 series, the films from 50 years ago. This month I'm doing October. This month of October I'm doing horror films. I've already done something like 37 videos, on single videos on movies from 50 years ago. And I plan on doing maybe 20 more before December 31st, and it's done 51 years ago. And I can assure you, I'm not going to do next year, if I'm still making YouTube videos, I'm not going to revisit 1973, 50 years ago. Although this has been a lot of fun. It's very exhaustive and sometimes even exhausting. But next year, to paraphrase Gwendolyn from The Importance of Being Earnest, I plan on developing in many different directions. So today, this horror film, Endless Night from Agatha Christie, and it's directed by Sidney Gillette and starring Hywel, Bennet and Hayley Mills in their third collaboration together, co-starring together in '67 Family Way. They made another sort of suspense movie, and then this is the last one that they made together, Endless Night. Agatha Christie, I read the novel a couple nights ago. I hadn't read Agatha Christie novel in many, many years, but I read quite a few of them back in the day. So I was really surprised how good it was. I mean, this is a really good novel, and I learned subsequently that Agatha Christie felt it was one of her best novels. It wasn't what I expected. There's no detective, there's no Hercule Poirot, there's no Tommy and Tuppence, no Miss Marple. It's not even a traditional whodunit. As reading it, I was sort of reminded of, I don't know why, but I was reminded of James Cain, Jim Thompson. The novel has been compared to Daphne du Maurier. For sure, it's sort of a modern Gothic. It's set in modern times, but it has such a Gothic feel to it. Starting with the opening credits, because it's waves crashing against rocks. And Bernard Herrmann, a lush music score that could go back to the 1940s Gothic adaptation. But then we're in the new world. We're in the world of 1970. And Christie had felt like she was getting old-fashioned. So we have two young protagonists in this film that seem very modern. And the film is very faithful to the novel. Having just read it the night before I watched the movie, I was amazed how faithful Juliet is to the film. Of course, Christie is always, she's very adaptable. There is a cinematic quality to her work. But in 1972, she had not had an adaptation of one of her works in the commentary. I think 7 years since she had had an adaptation. Now the following year would be Murder on the Orient Express, and suddenly there was a explosion of Agatha Christie adaptations that have continued on to this day. And the film is, like I say, sort of a modern Gothic, but it has a fairy tale, idyllic surface to it. As a feckless, penniless young man who dreams of his big house. That's his dream in life, is to have a beautiful house. He even has a spot, a hillside overlooking overlooking 2 miles down, a rolling hillside down into the ocean. He even has his architect, but he has no money. And then one day, while walking around in this location that he wants to build his house, he comes across a woman in white, long blonde hair, woman in white, dancing through the landscape. And they develop a relationship. Cinderella story. She's a rich heiress. She's about to be 21. She's been sheltered. She's eager to escape the clutches of her extended family, as she is an orphan and a lone heiress of her grandfather's estate. And she's very loving, she's very lovable, and the speckless, penniless young man is also very good looking and very charming. Women go for him. and so does this heiress. But below the surface of this idyllic fairy tale, you always feel, in the book and in the movie, you feel something is going on under the surface, that all this is on top of the surface. Of course, it's Agatha Christie. You know, we know, and it was publicized, we're going to have a great twist. But where is it coming from? We can't really tell. The heiress has a friend who had been a tutor in her teenage years, and this extended family, including the evil stepmother, at least that's how the movie kind of portrays her, they worry that she has undue bad influence on the heiress. There's a local witch living in the village where the house is to be built, and she threatens them, and you can't build a house there. This is gypsy land, and you'll be cursed, and you better get out of here. She sends warnings. She may have even thrown a rock through the window. We don't know. House itself is not creepy. It's not a Gothic mansion. It's very modern style. A swimming pool in the living room, indoor swimming pool in the living room, glasses, windows where the glass is such that you can look out in these beautiful landscapes, but you can't, people from the outside cannot look in. So we have this tension building throughout the movie, and when I watched it the second time, you can really notice, you know, even after you know the twist, this is one of those movies that I think you can actually enjoy the movie maybe even more, even when you know the twist, because it sort of has an inevitability to it. And the director, Sidney Gilliat, this is his last film, and he had a long-time career with Frank Laundner as screenwriters, producers, directors, most famous for the screenplay for Alfred Hitchcock's The Lady Vanishes, but also some of their own directed films, Green for Danger, The Bells of St. Trinian's, many, many more. They collaborated on 40 movies over almost 50 years. Collaborating. Now, Frank Laundner is not involved in this film. He's listed in the very beginning, Gillette Laundner Presents, but he is not the producer of the film. He has no other credit. I already mentioned Bernard Herrmann's lush score in the beginning, just as Agatha Christie is at least attempting to stay in tune with modern times. Bernard Herrmann uses a Moog synthesizer. Probably the only time he ever did. Well, he didn't have very many more scores to write. But it's a very effective score that's very much in tune with the action. So you don't, unlike some of the Herrmann scores, especially like in the Brian De Palma movies, where you hear it always. You're always aware of the score. You're not always aware of the score in this film, but nevertheless, very, very, very atmospheric. Hywel Bennet, who plays the penniless young man who becomes Cinderella, he has a very complex role, and they had. And you notice it again. That's something you will notice on the second viewing of the film. Very much a actor of the late '60s, early '70s. Hayley Mills, of course. I guess she's in her early 20s here, and I always have a soft spot for Hayley Mills, not for the Disney movies that gave her great popularity. An enduring popularity, but for her early British films, Whistle Down the Wind and Tiger Bay. I'm pretty much the same age as Hayley Mills, and I always felt a real sort of connection with her from those films and going forward. And she's quite beautiful in this film, and it is a perfect part for her. Her companion, Greta, is played by Britt Eklund. This is in her, I guess, Peter Sellers days, when she was married to Peter Sellers. Anyway, she was in a lot of British films, including The Wicker Man. I think was maybe the following year. And she's, she's dressed up sort of tutorish, schoolmarmish in the beginning of the film, but she adds to the creepiness because after all, this is Britt Eklund, And who is she really? We wonder about that with all the characters. Who are they really? What are their motives? Per Oscarsson, a great Swedish actor, plays the architect, and he too is eerie because he has sort of supernatural instinct about people, but especially about the Hywel Bennet character. He's very good, and there's quite a few little bits of British actors that, you know, George Sanders plays Mr. Lippincott, who is the heiress's lawyer. He's not part of the family, but he's the one that really seems to care about her. And he seems to, and the way he tries to size up this new husband of hers. Leo Genn pops up in the very last scene. I don't even think he has a credit. I didn't even realize it was Leo Genn until I listened to the commentary. Lois Maxwell, like Brett Eklund from the Bond movies, there, Peter Bowles. It's really a very interesting production. Christie, what did Christie think of Endless Night? She thought it was very flatly directed. And Sidney Gilliat said that it was not a good experience for him. He hadn't directed a movie in a long time. He was back with British Lion, so he should have felt comfortable, but he said, I didn't have any fun making this film. But I thought he did a great job on both screenplay and direction. Endless Night was a big bomb at the box office, never appeared in the United States. I guess it was never released in the United States to the theaters. I'm assuming it came out on in VHS somewhere along the line, or perhaps on different cable stations in the 1980s. And I never came across it myself until recent years. I noticed it came up on Canopy and this Kino release. There's an Indicator release in England with this has a commentary on it, which is a little fanboyish, but still lots of good information. Indicator, I think the Indicator Region B release has a lot meatier extras on it. But I enjoyed it a lot. Is it a horror film? You know, it's categorized as a horror film, and certainly I think the last 10 minutes, I think, qualifies it as a horror film. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are always welcome. Take care.